So this is what we're discussing. What is plagiarism and referencing? How to see if a source is scholarly. There is a difference between a blog or some, site that some student wrote and a scholarly source, and we want you to write using scholarly sources. I'll speak about in-text referencing versus a reference list, not a bibliography or not writing a bibliography. There is a difference, but I won't go into that. I'll take you through some good referencing, and again, I'll give you the set of slides. Again, you may think that this is boring, but if you can't do this stuff, you will not do well in your degree, regardless of what phase you're in. Okay, good referencing, difference between quoting, summarizing, and paraphrasing. I mean, some people, half of your essays were just quotes, which, I mean, yeah, anyone can copy and paste. Forms of plagiarism, I'll give you a referencing checklist. So a checklist you need to follow while looking at your essay, the structure of your essay, and I'll leave some time at the end for questions. Are there any things that you also want covered? It may fit in somewhere here. Cool. So feel free to ask questions in between, whenever. I don't bite. Well. Cool. That's questions. It's there. Okay, what on earth is the point of referencing? Move this down. Okay, so, I mean, people earn a lot of money for this stuff. From a purely capitalist perspective, this is how universities make money, this is how research organizations make money, and this is how people get jobs. I mean, we live in a knowledge economy, so ideas are property and inventions. So that's an important point that you need to make. So here, in understanding referencing, you need to understand that there is obviously a difference between your ideas, the ideas of other people. But in your essay, you're constantly trying to synthesize these two things through analysis, analyzing someone else's ideas, application. So if you're trying to apply an idea, a theory, to a particular context that hasn't been written about, and as well as to critique ideas. So that is the space where the muddling occurs. And I'll give you some tools for how to improve that a little bit. Cool. So what's plagiarism? When an author uses someone else's ideas without properly citing the source to give them credit. I'll show you how to do it properly, or completely copying the ideas of others and presenting them as one's own. And there are obviously varying degrees of that. Some people will copy an entire paragraph, then right-click synonyms on Microsoft Word. And because I can speak English, I know that that thing doesn't make sense. You can't just use any synonym that comes up on Microsoft. Well, other times there's a higher plagiarism count. If your plagiarism count is in the 30s, that's a source for deep concern. Even the low 30s, because that points to a poor application of the idea. Okay, how do you find out if a source is scholarly? Well, look over there. That's a good resource. You need to use scholarly resources. So scholarly resources are resources written and peer-reviewed by credible journals or books. And sometimes Sometimes there are some exceptions, obviously. If you're speaking about the start of the COVID-19 pandemic and it's April 2020, obviously there won't be a journal article unless someone has some supernatural gifts. There won't be articles written about that. So then we'll use more, again, credible, perhaps newspaper articles, usually the neoliberal ones. Okay, so how to see if something is scholarly? Firstly, the authors. We usually look at the who the author is. The article will usually say who the author is, and someone needs to have some expertise, some qualification, based in a research organization, an NGO sometimes, who submit journal articles, but it needs to be someone with the expertise to be able to do so. Again, Google Scholars is, and I'll speak to that now. Publishers are another thing, and be careful, especially when it's a website and someone, there's no name there. Just don't reference it. It's usually not appropriate. The publishers, if you're looking at if the publisher is a primary school or Drum Magazine, usually the group, the organization that published it you will know the academic credibility of that publisher. The source, so generally from a library database, Google Scholar is always the best source for that. Do you all know what Google Scholar is? Anyone have questions? Okay, just search Google Scholar, you will find it. See, scholar.google.com. You can search if you give me a topic, any topic. Gender. Oh gosh, this is gonna be a big one. Okay. You can, again, you want to be as specific as possible. If you want to go for more general stuff, cool. You'll find the article here. You may find a PDF. Try to. There's some interesting stuff about that. You can also find how it must be referenced by going to cite. Here's a list. So you don't need to come up with the thing by yourself. Here's a list of, depending on the referencing type, we use Harvard. You will just copy and paste that and use it at the end of your essay in your reference list. Are there questions? Don't be scared to ask a question. Cool. Okay. Cool. And then, okay. The journal in the article appears in peer-reviewed articles, papers, or books. Who the audience is. Again, your textbook generally is a lot of you wrote Massionis and Plummer. Some of the stuff is original in the textbook, but most of it has sources in it. You'll see in brackets where that appears, as well as the content. Is it tabloid or does it have some sort of credibility as well? Yes, sir, I'm not going to take you through the step-by-step guide, but again, this is a process you must follow. You'll have the slideshow to know if a source is scholarly or not. So please follow it. Okay, again, we're using Harvard. In-text referencing. So, in your in-text referencing, you use in-text referencing whenever you have used an idea from another person. So you have the surname, just the surname, not their whole name, their second name, and their nickname. Just the surname, that's all. Comma, year, and the page number on which it is found. Okay? So that's in your essay. Generally, we've given you a clue that generally people who use less than 5 sources are going to fail this assignment. But you have the whole of Easter to, I don't know, pray and go to Vortex or write something. Reference, so that's, and also generally using only one source in a paragraph is not going to be particularly good. So generally you want to be doing in-text referencing at least twice. We're not going to count if it's just a bunch of opinions, then you can't use it. Then your reference list, which appears at the end of your paper, end of your essay, that must be in alphabetical order. Here's an example of Harvard referencing, a reference I recently used because I write about that stuff. Cool. Any questions about in-text referencing? I saw there were a few on that Jamboard. Questions? In-text? Okay, cool. You understand everything. Yeah? No. No. Whenever you are using someone else's ideas, we won't punish you for referencing a lot. And not at this level, definitely not. Cool. A couple of things just to take you through again. Hopefully we won't take too long. Okay, quoting. Quoting is obviously direct use of someone else's words using quotation marks. And you obviously need to include page numbers always. If you use more than 6 lines or more than 100 words, it needs to be in block quotes in your essay. So it needs to be like the margins need to be smaller of that paragraph. And then block quotes don't have quotation marks. Don't put quotation marks around block quotes. We can see that you're using a block quote. Questions to consider, and I think this is very important here. Do you really need to quote? Is this so seminal? Yeah? Yeah?
If you use 2 ideas from the same source kind of following each other, and how do you avoid doing an in-text citation at the end of both sentences and it's the same in-text citation?
It depends on how long the sentence is, and generally do it the first time. If it's just 2 short sentences, then just do it the first time. If you do feel like perhaps you had a break, included your own analysis in between there, then no one's going to punish you for especially at this level. In a first year course, no one will punish you for referencing too much. And then if they do, just speak to me, I suppose. It's not like I can do anything. Okay, so again, what are you trying to achieve? Is it that important do you really need to quote section here? That if you change anything, if you paraphrase, if you say how you understood it, it will completely have lost its meaning. Don't just quote because you think they're using, lovely, colorful words. So does it need? So are you doing a detailed analysis of the author's words? Another question is to consider is, are you showing some peculiar characteristic in the author's writings and choice of words? Sometimes some people use a particular phrase, sentence in such a way that it will, your essay will lose credibility if you don't do it. Do you need the author's own voice to legitimize and authorize the point you're making? Obviously, you do need it, but will it completely lose its meaning? Again, paraphrasing is rewriting the same. So that was quoting. Now, paraphrasing, rewriting the same information in a different way. So it helps better integrate the ideas into the piece you are writing. It shows that you've ingested, you've grappled with the ideas that you're dealing with when you do paraphrase, rather than just quoting. Okay, there's a couple of steps you can follow. I know it's wordy. I won't go through it too much. You can look through it. So read the whole paragraph, read the whole article actually. But if you are aware of the topic, you're acquainted with the topic, you can please read the whole paragraph and see if you understand its meaning. Make notes in your own words. If particular words or phrases are striking and you want to put them down, put them in inverted commas and indicate which page it was on. So there needs to be a note-taking process here as well. Think about the topic of your paper and which parts that thing, that paragraph, or the entire paper relates to. Because we're speaking about European origin sociology, we're critiquing it, we're saying how it relates to Africa. If you can find a bunch of articles that do all of that, then yeah, I don't think you can. But think so for your purposes. Do you need to paraphrase a whole passage or paragraphs, or just key sentences from it? Again, don't do things that are potentially going to cause you to have a high plagiarism count, because that creates issues. Then put away your notes and the text and write as if you are explaining it to me or to someone in the class. If you can't do that, you don't understand what you're writing. If you don't understand what you're writing, what you've read, read it again, ask someone for questions about it, or just don't write about that thing. Some people just write in such a convoluted way that they're just difficult to understand. So don't. Okay, summarizing versus paraphrasing. Again, sorry, I'm going at a blistering pace here. Okay, that was paraphrasing. So summarizing highlights only the main points of an article. So there is a difference. Paraphrasing is I'm taking that person's ideas and using it for my context, and in my context and for my essay. Summarizing is you just basically, again, writing in your own words what that person spoke about in that context that they were writing in and for. So that's an important one. Some people summarized and didn't paraphrase, didn't take that information and do something with it for their own writing purposes. So summarizing, not changing context, and writing in someone else's perspective and paraphrasing, you're doing something with it for your topic. There are, again, we're nearly done, different forms of plagiarism. This, although it may look different, that is word for word plagiarism. You're taking key phrases, your critical care nurses have a hierarchy of roles. Critical care nurses function in a hierarchy of roles. I mean, that is trash. you'll just and you'll see key phrases are taken here, and you can look through it yourself. Critical sections are taken, and I mean, there's just a reference at the end. You're not saying where you got your ideas. You're not saying where your ideas. Again, when you don't reference, we assume that's your idea. That's you having done something with those ideas. So lifting most phrases, no attributions, no quotes. Okay, patchwork plagiarism, one that is done quite commonly. And I know how you do it. You click right, you copy the entire paragraph. You then choose a bunch of words which you want to change. I don't know how. Click right, click, and go to synonyms. Usually it changes the context entirely. And we can still, it still shows up as plagiarism on Turnitin. So no quotation. Patchwork plagiarism is, again, when you take certain sections and just change a few words. So changing a few words, passing off the phrases as your own. Okay, here's an example. This person, just, again, if you take that original phrase, there are just words that are changed in that original phrase about critical care nursing. That is patchwork plagiarism. This will have an extremely high plagiarism count. And it also, further than just the numbers, it shows that you haven't, are there any questions? Okay. It shows that you don't understand what you're writing about. Okay. So that is, then here's a referencing checklist. Please go through this checklist after, before you actually write, and after, to check. So if I've given proper credits, if they are well established and well accepted facts, you don't need to find a reference that says the sky is blue, or that, people sit in chairs. If they are well accepted facts, you don't need to find a reference for it. And that will, in terms of your question about referencing too much, both of your questions, that will be referencing too much. If you reference things that are well accepted facts, where I've used the exact words from another text, I've placed these in quotation marks. There's the stuff about block quotes, where I've paraphrased the work of another. I've done so with integrity. I've exercised caution when making my original notes, and so on.